so that anyone in the future would be able to look back at this and know these people had purpose and they had direction. So that's why I use the African Adinkra symbol, Sankofa, which means we have to look to the past, in the present, and move forward. And I think that's what we're doing. And I'm praying that that's what Promised Land Project is a move forward. We're using history. We're trying to record history so that we can appreciate it and move forward, and hopefully not make the same mistakes that were made in the past. You know, they say that if we do tend to do that. History tends to repeat itself, and we don't really want that to happen. We want to move forward.
We're not merely unearthing a history which needs to be told. That's very, very important. However, we're doing more than that. We're retelling that history in the process of telling it. Because the usual narrative used to be people came from the US, from somewhere in the US, through the Underground Railroad, they arrived in Canada, and then they were free. So instead of taking Dawn, Chatham, Boxton, these as endpoints, which was the old way of doing the history, we're taking these areas as a generative point, a point that people came to and out of which people dispersed to other places. So it's this idea, I think, of Chatham Township as a whole, as a generative space that really attracts me as something very exciting to do with a historical project.
Presentation is a primary component of the Promised Land Project. There are many ways to present things. For example, historical enactment, in which you become the character. We were talking about that. You become the character based on research, the person's own words and the deep historical research and connections that you've done. You stand on the stage as the character and you answer questions as the character. I did that with Pleasant for 16 years. Teacher guides and international online resources, so that you're not just giving a book, but you're putting together a little guide to use an online database that says, over here in Chatham, there is this material on this person, and you can requisition what you need to create the play or to do whatever you want. So that's a presentation forum. What I did with Pleasant after I said, you know, I can hoof it forever, and people won't know this story, and so it needs to go to the next level, which is media. Well, I won't talk about how I raised the money and all of that, but in my dissertation for my PhD was a 3-DVD archive in which I archived interviews about the rare history that I'd heard over the many years that I had talked about Pleasant and researched Pleasant, including one with Gwen. And, from Canada and the United States, I archived my own performance. I archived all the elements, music and all kinds of things, pictures, photographs, footage of all the areas. And all of this went on a DVD set that was interactive and that explained my research. And that was put in a repository. It is now in several archives. And so, of course, we can archive in a way that people can go and be entertained and pull whatever they need, a picture and a document and a piece of performance.
I mean, the research will be performative. The performances that can be generated are performative. And then, what is it, whether it's going to be, a didactic performance, hey, this is Josiah, this is what happened, or if you just, take an incident, a conflict. Josiah and Charlotte sending the little guy to school. And it's like, that's not necessarily the Broadway Let's Tour, but let's figure out how to do that dramatically within the context of what you're doing. And then that's a learning situation. It's about using theater and performance in the pedagogical moment. DJ here, it's like, okay, my dad does this, and all the nice people do this. But if I created a scene with him, and we start doing this scene or this monologue, and I'm directing him, it's like, oh, Dr. John, I'm kind of shy or whatever, but you've given me the words. I've studied the history, or I've come up with this monologue, and I'm working with you. He's still a student. It might be, what's it called, GIGO? Garbage in, garbage out? But some of it will be in his body because he's embodied it himself. he'll remember that history. He'll remember that particular event because we worked with it in an interactive way. So this is a particular imperative for theater as historical pedagogy, teaching, I'm sorry, I'm using those big conference words. Pedagogy, yes. John, are you talking about teaching? Why did you just say teaching? As the pedagogical moment, the educational moment, the aha moment that can be fun and social, but it's like it's got that bent in it that you don't have to beat somebody up about it. Yeah, you're learning history, but you're learning this.
It's about using, for example, I'm talking about from the historian point of view, it's about using slave narrative to create and develop knowledge. It's about seeing how they fit not only in the, how can I put it? Yes, using it to create knowledge and using it to transmit knowledge, to create a circular pattern of knowledge. I tell you the story, you will tell it, not simply as a narrative that people are remembering and examples and small bits and bobs, but as a history that is actually part of a bigger history. So it's about teaching, it's about education actually, finding ways to include people in teaching, in education, sorry.
So education was critically important, and black people and education go together. And here in Canada, it is equally true. And so education is a critical ingredient also in our research. The role of education in the civil rights movement, in the struggle of blacks to fulfill their rightful place in society is really important. Their stories, their interpretations, their pride, their independence, their self-determination, their challenges, their triumphs, their shortfalls and sense of freedom and justice are at the forefront of investigation.
But what I see there's academia and community. And maybe there's other circles there, but this is a research project. It's involving universities. It's involving a wide scope, but it's also a community project. And the knowledge of this community and the knowledge of the structure of the community and the history is with the community. The knowledge of how to take that, how to document it, how to disseminate it is with academia. And I don't see an integrating mechanism. I see a board of directors, I see this whole chat, but I don't see an integrated mechanism for sorting out these issues. So therefore, you're looking at it from your perspective. I'm dividing the room up, in this half, but academia looks at it a certain way, community looks at it a certain way. There is some interlinking within the community.
Talking about the processes and how these will be managed. This is a very difficult task, trust me, because we're dealing with different kind of, we have different relationship with language. As we're sitting here right now, we think that we do speak the same language, but we do not. My task is difficult. So I'm trying to, and I guess we were successful because I'm not into the politics of language. I'm into the making of something. And this is a two different